goal setting? Is it a pointless exercise or a worthwhile activity? And do you struggle to set goals that have any value or meaning to them? Today I'm going to talk about why you should be setting goals. So I'm not going to go into the how and the SMART goals. I'm going to talk about why you should be setting goals and how they work. This time of year, me, every business coach, every consultant and advisor is going to be talking about goals and goal setting for 2020. But do they actually work, and why do we keep talking about goals? There have been various scientific studies that demonstrate that goals do work and that goal setting does give you what you're looking for. It does give you better results and better achievements. One of the studies was a Harvard study, 1979, and they took a survey and a sample of all the graduates that year and found out that 84% of graduates didn't have any goals. 13% of the graduates had goals, but they hadn't written them down, but they knew what they wanted to achieve in their heads. And then just 3% had goals written down. They caught up with these students 10 years later, and using salary as a measure of whether the goals were working or not, they spoke to the 84%, the 13%, and that 3%. What they found out is that the 13% of people who had goals but hadn't written them down, they were earning twice as much as the people who didn't have any goals at all. But what was really staggering is the 3% who had goals written down were earning 10 times as much as the other two groups put together. So they were earning 10 times the salary of the people who had goals but hadn't written them down and those who didn't have any goals at all. So just having shown you one of the results that you get from goal setting and the different comparable salaries from that group of graduates, let's look at why goal setting works. Now, if you think of the age today, the social media age, and we're bombarded with messages all the time, your brain takes in about 1 million pieces of information every second. So if you think about the room that you're sat in at the moment, you're aware of the flooring, whether it's carpet, the texture, the colour, the walls, the ceiling, the lighting, natural, artificial lighting. You're aware of the desk, the table, the materials all there, but you don't consciously think about those because you can't possibly. Because on top of that, you've got the signs and the notices on the wall telling you safety information, that type of thing. And then you're on some kind of device, whether it's your laptop, computer, phone, watching this video as well. And I'm sure you've got other bits of information around that as well, other videos that you should be watching. So our brain is bombarded with information all the time. And we have, in the back of our brain, it's a little filter that filters out what our subconscious is just going to handle for us and what we're going to deal with. So if you go into a new situation, a new scenario, that's where you get overwhelmed because your subconscious can't deal with all of that information for you because it hasn't experienced it before and it doesn't know what to do with it. So sometimes that's when you get overwhelmed. But most of the time your subconscious is filtering that. And that's your reticular activation system. So that's the filter in our brains. So that filter will take out what it doesn't think is useful to you. And that could be, imagine when you've been looking at a new car, for example, and you've seen a model that you don't think you've seen out there very often, and it's a really unusual colour. So you've decided that's the one you're going to go for because it's really rare, really uncommon. And then next weekend you go for a drive and you go and visit the in-laws, and suddenly on the motorway you've seen about 5 in the last half hour and you realise they're not as rare as you thought they were. That's because suddenly your filter is aware, your subconscious knows that you're interested in that car, that model, that colour. So then it's going to filter that through because that's one of the 5 to 9 things that your subconscious will pass through to your conscious brain because it knows you're interested in it. So that's the filter, so that it will pass through things that you are interested in. So if you set a really ambitious goal that you're going to do something within a 5-year period, for example, that sets your filter. And it means that you'll suddenly become aware of opportunities, conversations that you hadn't heard, or things that you hadn't heard, you hadn't seen before. Suddenly a conversation with somebody that normally in networking or a coffee you might not have really pursued much further, suddenly your subconscious is going to say, that might be useful because remember that 5-year goal? That actually might just get you on that path. So having those goals means that your filter's open and that you're going to start to see information, see opportunities that just weren't there before. So that's number 1, why you should be setting goals. Goals help you maintain pace. By setting a goal, let's say it's a turnover and you want to get to a certain revenue by a certain date. Having a goal there means you maintain the pace because you want to get to that place by a certain date. And by having that, you're looking at it and you're bearing that in mind, and you're judging where you are on that route to getting there. If you don't have a date for that goal and you just want to get to a certain turnover, what you'll find is that there's never that impetus to do something today that you could possibly do tomorrow. So you don't have that extra drive just to pick up that phone just one more time and just speak to one more customer just to get you that extra nudge forward. So having the goals in place helps you maintain pace. If you've got a larger goal, and let's say it is a 5-year goal, then break that down into 3 years to make sure that you're tracking where you need to be in 3 years, and then break that down into a 1-year goal. Bear in mind that if you want to go from a revenue here to a revenue here, we're not looking at a straight line, we're generally looking at something exponential, but you want to set those goals along the way to make sure that you're going to achieve those goals. And then having a coach working with you as well will keep you on track, hold you accountable, make sure you are taking all the different actions that you need to get to that 5-year goal and achieve that result. That means you know that you're on target, you know whether you're going to hit your 5-year goal or not, and then you can start to think about perhaps what's at risk if you don't hit that 5-year goal. And this is what starts to get really, really powerful, because what we're going to do next is we're going to look at turning those goals into something that means a little bit more to you personally. So yes, let's say it's a £5 million turnover in 5 years. It's quite dry, it's very number orientated. So yes, it would be great if the business was turning that over, but what does it really mean to you? So what we'll do with those goals along the way, we're going to look at them and say, how are you going to reward yourself personally? When you hit that 1-year goal and that 3-year goal and then the 5-year goal, what are you going to do to reward yourself? And then secondly, we're going to look at that 1-year goal, that 3-year goal, that 5-year goal. What does that mean to you? So I want to hit this goal, and then write a paragraph and say why you want to hit that goal. What does it mean to you? And then another paragraph about who you need to be to achieve that goal as well. And then we start to make it about you, personally about you. So your rewards could be a lovely meal somewhere that you've never been to before. A really lovely restaurant that you've heard about, Michelin star perhaps, and a celebrity chef. So have a look at the website, have a look at the pictures. Imagine yourself there taking your husband, your wife to dinner here at this beautiful restaurant. If you want a car, let's say that your treat would be to get mine would be a Porsche 911. So have you been to a Porsche showroom? Have you sat in the 911? Do you know how much it's going to cost a month to pay for lease or whatever, your 911? Make sure that that's a really, really tangible goal. If you struggle to visualize these things, instead of visualize yourself in the restaurant, try and visualize yourself in the car driving to work in your Porsche 911. Here's a trick I really love. So we all know the back of our hands. We know what they look like. Now wrap those around the steering wheel and sit in your car and drive to work in the brand new car. Start to visualize things and use as much information as you need to visualize this. Another trick is also your vision board. You've probably heard about these, and they do sound a little bit funny, but they really, really work. If your reward is going to be this beautiful restaurant or going on a safari, then make sure you've got some fabulous pictures up somewhere that you're going to see them regularly. So for many people, they put them in their bathroom, and they've got a vision board in the bathroom on the back of the door, and that's what they look at. So every day they're going to see that. They're going to see the pictures of going on safari. They're going to see the pictures of the inside of that really beautiful restaurant where they're going to sit on that table and have a beautiful meal with the celebrity chef, or the pictures of the fabulous car that they're looking to and in the colour that they want with the right leather interior that they're looking for. So make sure these goals and these rewards really mean something to you. And then finally after that, I said, who do you need to be to achieve these goals? So some of these goals do feel like a bit of a leap, and they should do. Those really big scary goals are the best ones. So it feels like a bit of a leap. Who do you need to be to get there? And that can be absolutely fascinating. For me, I did that a couple of years ago, and I looked at what I wanted to do, and suddenly I realized I needed a shift from personal productivity and personal output to actually more of a management style. And I was working too much on what I was outputting, and I wasn't working on my management style enough, and I needed to move and start looking at that area. So it's really interesting. Who do you need to be to achieve the next set of goals? And that too is quite exciting, because then you're thinking about how you're going to develop. How are you going to feel when you're that person who can do X? So really, really exciting. Make these goals something that means something to you personally. Yes, we've got a £5 million turnover in 5 years' time, and that does feel exciting. But then it's the personal aspects of that makes it really exciting too. So when you're looking at that, when is that phone call that you need to make and you're really putting it off and you don't want to speak to that particular customer, remember what's at stake. Okay, yes, there's a £5 million turnover may be affected if you don't make that phone call, but your Porsche 911 or that safari holiday is also at stake. Now that's a really good reason to pick up the phone and make that extra call, or do that extra piece of paperwork, or sit down and go through that report that your accountant sent you and you really struggle with. So find something really personal that's going to motivate you, and then find people around you that means something to. Maybe it's taking your family on a holiday that they really, really want to do. Maybe the children always wanted to go to Disney World. And so if you promise the family that you're going to do this in 3 years' time, if you hit your goals, you've got a real incentive to get there as well. So bring other people in on your goals. Let them know what your goals are and what you're going to do. Let them hold you accountable. Definitely a business coach is going to hold you accountable every step along the way. But your nearest and dearest are really powerful motivators as well. So make sure everybody knows what you're doing and make sure everybody's really excited for you and knows that you're going to hit those goals and hit those achievements. So we've got the personal factors and why something means something to you and why it's really important to you emotionally. Make sure that your team know what your goals are. So set out your goals so that you can share this with the team and everybody's on board. Now within your team, you're likely to have numbers orientated people. So you can say, I want to get to £5 million in 5 years. So in 1 year's time, we're going to aim for £1.2 million, for example. That's great for the numbers orientated people. But the people who aren't numbers orientated, then we need to say what we're going to do. And that might be, so we want to make sure that all our customers have X. And this is the emotional reason, and it gives your team an emotional reason to get involved. So we're not saying you go out and buy them all a Ferrari each. What we're saying is something that means something to the team. It's about being the best in your specific market area so that everybody can get on board with that goal too. So you've got one goal, but separated in two different ways. One's the emotional reason, one's the numbers reason. And that means the whole team gets on board behind you and everybody pushes in the same direction. And then finally, and very simply, having really clear goals stops you getting distracted by the shiny things along the way. So if you imagine your path from here to your £5 million turnover is along this route, it stops you taking diversion around there and looking at perhaps that workshop or looking at this factory or looking at these options. Perhaps it keeps you on focus. So you know you want to get from A to B, and preferably in the shortest, most direct route possible. So knowing what your goals are just keeps you focused, keeps you targeted. You know who you need in the team to achieve that goal. You know what the business needs to look like. You know how much production that you need in your workshop, for example. So having those goals there, those really clear-cut goals, those that are business orientated, number orientated, and those that are more personal, again, means an awful lot and keeps you on track, stops you getting distracted by the shiny things. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you're not sick of the word of goal setting by now. If you've got any thoughts, any comments, love to hear them. I'd love to know what your goals are, especially for 2020 at the beginning of a new decade. How exciting. So let me know what your goals are. Let me know if you've got any challenges. Please do get in touch. Love to hear from you. Thank you.